Central Bank Governor urges government to make adjustments. Prime Minister visits frost-stricken areas. And Bougainvilleans to commemorate Missing Persons Day.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
Good evening and welcome to the news on this National Day of Prayer. A supplementary budget is expected to be handed down in the next Parliament sitting. Bank of PNG Governor Loy Bakani said this needs to happen if we are to ensure stability within our economy. Speaking during a news conference today, Mr. Bakani says the Mid-Year Economic and Fiscal Outlook report has highlighted several economic developments that requires the government to make immediate adjustments.
This is the reality. We have to adjust to the real shocks that we're facing now in the economy.
Mr. Bakani echoed the likely impacts the low commodity prices will have on the economy and the national government's revenue.
The revenue flows into the budget is on a declining trend. Okay? So, and this will of course impact on the tax revenue that the government is expecting from the resource sector. It will also affect the inflows of foreign exchange. Again, this is another effect that you will see in the foreign exchange market, where there is ongoing shortage of foreign exchange coming in. And with that, it will also affect the exchange rate and also the level of reserves we have.
He says while PNG's growth rate will decline from the projected rate of 15.5%, he says contrary to gloomy commentaries, PNG's economy is still strong.
We still have a 9 to 11% growth in GDP.
But he says the reality is that PNG does not have the revenue to maintain the spendings that the government originally planned for.
So they have to critically look at the budget for this year and cut all or delay or defer some of those non-priority expenditure areas that are in this year's budget.
Mr. Bakani says the government's expenditure and revenue are below the budgeted level, which has resulted in a deficit of 0.94 billion kina. He said adjustments that are made to the national budget must ensure that the deficit should not be greater than 2.3 billion kina.
The critical point is that the government, if it maintains 4.4% of GDP, the deficit for this year as per the original budget, it will set a good foundation for 2016. If it does more and brings the deficit down, it's even places the government in a better position to frame.
Mr. Bakani supported the Prime Minister's stance that priority areas of health, education and law and order will be protected against these adjustments. Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
Meanwhile, Bank of PNG Governor Loy Bakani says making a comparison between PNG and Greek economies is far-fetched. Supported by Assistant Governor Dr. Guy Kauzi, Mr. Bakani says the situation is very different because Greece is facing a debt situation while PNG's economic challenges are due to external factors.
It has a lot more problem than ours. In fact, ours is a creation of external factors.
PNG had never defaulted on its foreign debt. So that is to be made clear. Greece was in a lot more debt problem than PNG. Now, for someone to commentate that we are in a Greek-like situation, maybe he used that phrase to sell his article. We are nowhere near the Greek situation.
Well, areas in the Highlands region affected by drought and frost were visited this week by Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, who will bring their plight to Cabinet for further relief and forward action plans. The Prime Minister visited Tambul and Mendi, where food supplies have been received, and Yalibu Pangia, where truckloads of supplies are currently bringing much-needed supplies to communities.
The severely affected areas have received $5 million in funding for relief assistance following news of food crops destroyed by frost and a shortage of water in the recent weeks due to the El Nino drought and effects of climate change. The visit follows the Prime Minister's direction last week for the Department of Prime Minister and National Executive Council to provide $5 million in funding for the provision of relief assistance to the severely affected areas. PM O'Neill first visited the district of Tambul in the Western Highlands province, which was the worst affected and one of the first districts to be badly hit by frost. He also visited Yalibu Pangia to assess the damages and assure the people that relief supplies were on its way. The Mendi Munyu electorate also received a visit where supplies have been received and are being distributed.
Every week, every second week, but you go yet until rain put down. So
the Prime Minister's departments and other agencies have been tasked to assess the affected areas as conditions continue to worsen. Also in concurrence, the National Agricultural Research Institute is playing its part by visiting affected areas and providing free crop seedlings for replanting in hopes to sustain the people. These measures are being pursued in an attempt to ease an impending worsening of conditions anticipated in the coming months.
Because people like him, make him show him. Kai now this is something must go our community in our Manmeri. People less low something lose low road. Now Manmeri no such more assistance. Also na mibla kam na mibla ram look lo ogatap lo side lo yumi past time. Behind by yumi gola simbu na morbe na ogatap so. There's like every money working. Nature working so yumi laram lo amlo nature. That's what miss our same and by no stop also more the time behind the rain back up now by yumi gola normal way.
The Prime Minister says through quick response it is reassuring to see that communities are receiving relief supplies. However, he adds that in order to ensure the broader coordination and effective delivery during the critical period, food and other supplies will be transported directly to destinations instead of distributing cash. Vanessa Knight, National, EMTV News.
Meanwhile, a comprehensive report for the disaster-affected areas in Mendi Munyu district in Southern Highlands province was handed over to Prime Minister Peter O'Neill yesterday. Upon receiving the report, PM O'Neill said funding and relief supplies will depend entirely on the affected population. The report was prepared and compiled by the district administration.
After visiting the frost-affected Tambul Nebile district of Western Islands, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill flew into Southern Islands capital Mendi to receive the report from the Mendi Munyu administration. The report was presented to the Prime Minister by District Administrator James Mbia. The report outlines the magnitude of damage caused by frost and dry spell for the last 3 weeks in the Mendi Munyu district.
Reports, Prime Minister comprehensive report, or 1 minute now and or percentage. Ownership and taking bail so you can come out and start with people and people something and now we are also so I'm next lot of surprise.
Magnitude heavy I mean people are big mass. Also the government must intervene.
Mr. O'Neill said the district administration will be responsible for coordination of funding and food rations.
Relief support over the suppose additional funds again and the district. Now one district was killing just like that. So by the Google report, now Oliver Togo must man very affected by this killing this month. So
over 50,000 people were affected in Lai Valley, Upper Mendi and Karins when frost fell, killing plants and most garden produce. Jack Lapave Jr., National, EMTV News.
The people of Yalibu Pangia have been hailed for their patience, awaiting their local member and Prime Minister Peter O'Neill to address their plight. While visiting frost-affected provinces, Prime Minister O'Neill addressed his people at the Yalibu Pangia constituency and announced relief supplies. He called on the people not to rush to district headquarters to ask for relief, as the district administration will be coordinating the distribution. He also received a report on the situation in his electorates.
Hari miblay pasawal all finish. Only come round na by karam samla seedlings lo kan kan all kagay beli mega. So he can carry them by giving free of charge.
I'll be back on the other.
So side man like him seedlings, I will give him all this la Ogata Aplo Highlands.
You're watching National EMTV News tonight. I'll be back on the other side of this break with the day's other top stories. Stay with us. Thanks for your company and welcome back to the news. Families of the missing persons in the autonomous region of Bougainville will commemorate the International Day of the Disappeared. This year's theme, In the Darkness and Still Waiting, is in remembrance of their loved ones who are yet to be identified following the civil war in Bougainville. EMTV's Fabian Hakelitz with this story.
The International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, will be supporting several activities in Arawa and Buka to mark the International Day of the Disappeared on August 30. Families of the missing chose the theme for this year's ceremonies, In the Darkness and Still Waiting, that reflects frequent asked questions about the fate of their loved ones who went missing during the Bougainville conflict more than 20 years ago. On this occasion, ICRC reiterates that families have a right to know the fate of their missing loved ones. The first event will be held in around Friday, August 28 and Buka on the 30th. ICRC is an impartial, neutral and independent organization exclusively on humanitarian mission and is to protect lives and dignity of armed conflict victims and other violence-related situations by providing them with assistance and to prevent suffering by promoting and strengthening humanitarian law and the universal humanitarian principles. EMTV will bring you updates on the stories. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Madang Governor Jim Kass has challenged the Madang public to assist police in apprehending troublemakers responsible for the town's alarming crime rate. Kass says the lack of action by people who know the suspects is fueling the cycle of crime. On average, there are at least 10 armed robberies reported every month.
Madang's crime rate, an issue of concern for police and government authorities, has been a topic of discussion. Police have been criticized for what's being viewed as poor performance, but now the province's governor is throwing the challenge back at the Madang public, saying people should take ownership of the problem and hand over all those responsible for crimes committed.
Challenge lo mi go back long community lo Madang. Suppose you look him wrong man and misablo community na you know bring him this la wrong man. Ikam long hand long law, and problem long you. You are creating the problem. So no can shoot him ping along. Governor Blomedeng, government Blomedeng. You ask him yet, are you doing the right thing by hiding criminals?
Since the beginning of the year, there have been several brutal murders, one kidnapping, and police detectives here at the town police station report that armed robberies are averaging between 10 and 12 cases a month.
Suppose you know walk long open mouse. Not talk also man walking wrong or man breaking law and become stable here. If you are not going to own up, crime will be here to stay.
The growth of Madang town has outpaced that of the constabulary. Some members of the police force continue to live in the condemned Kuspao police barracks. Others, like Constable Elemas Boni, have found temporary refuge in the old Lutheran shipping vessel, the Mamose, after he was evicted from government housing in February. Another constable, Gideon Ati, lives and works in his office on the ground floor of Madang Town Police Station. This is what plagues Madang Police.
The high rate of crime, the housing problems and the lack of public support are all factors directly connected to the poor quality of police investigations. Madang Governor Jim Kass has also stressed that the public can't remain frightened while criminals take over the town. Scott Wide, National EMTV News, Madang.
The third Simbu Provincial Day was celebrated in Port Moresby at the weekend. Hundreds of Simbus flocked into Gerehu Secondary School grounds to celebrate with the rest of the crowd. The annual event is organized by the University of Papua New Guinea Simbu Students Society.
Organized by the University of Papua New Guinea Simbu students, the aim of this year's Provincial Day was to raise funds that will go towards the bigger celebrations next month, PNG's 40th anniversary.
For the Simbu Provincial Day, the aim is, because we are in the 21st century, the aim is to unite all the Simbus around, especially in Moresby,
All districts of Simbu had cultural groups taking part during the Cultural Day. With the theme tying our culture with our future, the Provincial Day also aimed at building network amongst the students as well as the community at large.
Association, we will still have a group that will be participating.
Patron of the society and Simbu Governor Noah Cool funded a fundraising drive in the evening to raise funds for the El Nino relief drive. The UPNG Simbu Student Society is yet to receive the pledge that was made by NCD Governor for students to host Provincial Day, but this did not stop them from staging a successful Provincial Day.
Nami blang Chimbu, nami marad lo Southern Islands. Na meeting ose mi blo Chimbu na sla day blo Chimbu ose na mi kam la celebrative sla day.
Mi file amma so mi pat do Chimbu na mi kam so sole so all own countrymen na women do mi amma.
It was big but not as big as this 2 days. The crowd is bigger and the dances and the singing, the organization, it went smoothly. So I have faith that most of what we wanted to achieve, we achieved today already.
The society will have a group to represent Simbu Province during the 40th anniversary celebrations in Port Moresby. Michelle Amba, National EMTV News.
Youths in Commonwealth countries have been called to help contribute to the development of their countries. With that aim, youth leaders in PNG discussed cross-cutting issues experienced by the youths and aimed to form an open dialogue with organizations and civil societies. Youth leaders say the youth must be empowered to drive development agendas in the country.
A two-day workshop was held recently to form a national youth voice. During the meet, youth leaders did presentations and panel discussions to help build greater public awareness, informing better dialogue among stakeholders so youths can be the forefront of development.
What they think should be done to improve their scope of delivering services, of representing young people's voices and solving issues in their community.
Around 10,000 youths drop out of school every year and are left on the streets. Urban Youth Employment Manager Tom Gill says all these youths can be utilized to see changes in communities.
The challenge of managing the youths of these countries is a big challenge, and National Youth Authority cannot do it alone unless it's given adequate funding from the national government. But let us continue to work together to see some positive result.
Creating dialogue through the Commonwealth by placing youths in the center of national development by having a cohesive national youth voice.
The challenge now is for the National Youth Development Authority and stakeholders to support and create avenues for the marginalized youths to be positive and be the difference.
So it's getting to them at an early stage and getting them to understand that each of them has a contribution, has a role to play in this country. It's just one of us helping them find what that role is and giving them the resources that they need to help contribute as well.
Similar consultation workshops will be held in the coming months to emphasize young people's voice. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
Civil society organizations want people in forest communities to be a priority in any development of their area. CSO representatives say while the government is embracing sustainable development, forest communities must be the focus. They made this clear yesterday following the announcements of the 2015 National CSO Seminar and Exhibition, which opens this Friday.
Civil society organizations including churches, NGOs, government agencies and private institutions met yesterday at Lamana Hotel to announce the upcoming CSO seminar and exhibition. But the message echoed in yesterday's meet was the need for the government to focus primarily on the lives of communities in forest areas. Most expressed that forest communities are always left out while millions and billions are made from the forest.
Taking into consideration how the rural people, their needs and concerns is going to be captured. These are omitted.
Many of these groups have worked in rural communities in the country. They have been at the forefront to deliver services and drive government's agenda forward.
Our local forest resource owners are mainly losers in the end. They suffer due to logging activities and all that, and they're left in terms of development. And if they become part of the development process, part of the active stakeholders in the process, in the end, we'll realize that they're happy.
They believe sustainable development will only be achieved if there is more collaboration, understanding, and better dialogue between the forest communities, the government, developers, and CSOs.
Those activities are beneficial to them, and also in the long run, they're also beneficial to the ecosystem and the rivers and all those things that in there.
The exhibition and seminar will be held at the University of Papua New Guinea's Forum Square this Friday, with the theme supporting holistic approach towards responsible, sustainable development in PNG. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
Meanwhile, Deputy Chairman of PNG Ecoforestry, Kevin Mondiai, called on all members of the public to attend the exhibition and seminar on Friday. He says it will be an opportunity to create awareness to save our eco-forest and help improve the lives of people in forest communities. Over 15 civil society organizations will be taking part in the exhibition.
Learning for everyone, so we would like to encourage school kids, parents, government departments, the open forum, and also private sector. If you can send your communication and PR people around to the forum, we encourage that, partnership, we can work together to.
You're with National EMTV News tonight. We'll bring you stories making headlines overseas when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Turning overseas now, the suspected gunman who was overtaken by passengers on a train in France last week carried with him an assault AKM rifle with 270 rounds of ammunition and an automatic pistol with a full cartridge, a box cutter and a water bottle-sized container full of gasoline, according to French authorities. The 25-year-old Moroccan has been charged with attempted murder, attempted mass murder, and membership in a terrorist organization.
Yeah, dude, I'm still missing the handgun. He came out of the train bathroom with no shirt on, armed with an assault rifle, an automatic pistol, and more than 200 rounds of ammunition. His chest? It could have been a bloodbath. Paris's chief prosecutor, for the first time, reveals what he says was Ayoub Kazani's intent to commit a terrorist act.
While on the train, El-Kazani was looking at jihadi YouTube sites, which called for people to carry out terrorist acts.
A far cry from Kazani's claim that he was on the train to rob passengers.
It's okay.
What the suspect didn't have, according to one of the Americans who took him down, was skill in firing his weapons.
He clearly had no firearms training whatsoever, and yes, if he knew what he was doing, or even just got lucky and did the right thing, he would have been able to operate through all 8 of those magazines, and we would have all been in trouble and probably wouldn't be here today.
The prosecutors charging Ayoub Kazani with attempted murder, attempted mass murder, and membership in a terrorist organization. And CNN has learned from European security officials about Kazani's travels before he boarded the Amsterdam to Paris train in Brussels. French prosecutor Francois Molin says Kazani emigrated to France from Spain, where he'd been radicalized at a mosque. The suspect claims to have bounced around between cities in France, Germany, Austria, and Belgium, claims to have been homeless for a period, living in a park in Brussels. The French prosecutor says Kazani was flagged for surveillance in France, but was never actually followed. A German security source says when Kazani flew through Berlin to Turkey in May, he was flagged for a search, then allowed to proceed. How could he have fallen through the cracks with 2 of Europe's top security agencies?
For an individual, if you're going to surveil him, you need 10, 20, 30 or more police to surveil someone, to follow them, to make sure they don't pick up on the tail. When you have a couple thousand, up to a couple thousand Frenchmen who've gone over into the battle, that means tens of thousands of people to surveil those individuals alone.
The French prosecutor says security services are also investigating who might have financed Ayoub El-Kazani because despite his claims of being homeless living in a park, he seemed to have means. His train ticket was first class, costing 149 euros, about $170, according to the prosecutor. And despite having a return plane ticket for his trip to Turkey, he apparently never used it, according to French and German sources, somehow obtaining a separate ticket to travel from southern Turkey through Istanbul to Albania.
Amid scenes of misery, thousands of migrants, most of them fleeing Syria's bitter conflict, remain stranded in a no-man's island on the border between northern Greece and Macedonia. In other areas, borders are being strengthened and new barriers are going across Europe as countries struggle to deal with the influx of migrants.
The problem is huge. Criminal gangs ferrying migrants from Libya to Italy, hundreds dying at sea, the same from Turkey to Greece. Once ashore, heading north through Europe for Germany, France, Britain and Sweden. Bottlenecks at borders are becoming the norm. Across the Channel from England, a migrant camp city in Calais. Migrants recently getting tear-gassed. European human rights law dictates governments must help migrants.
Which requires them to treat all people within their jurisdiction humanely, with a basic minimum of humanity.
25 years since the Berlin Wall came down. New barriers are going up now, faster than any time since the Cold War began. They leaked back then, and few expect them to work now.
Even they build into the sky, they make fire in front, they make lion in front, and a scorpion, we're gonna pass, because God bring us here.
His fate, like those who have come before him, and the many who may follow, is up in the air, at the whim of some chilly political winds.
A long-awaited inquiry into Britain's role in the Iraq War is now underway, a process that could determine whether former Prime Minister Tony Blair misled his country over the 2003 invasion. The inquiry is expected to be the most thorough investigation yet into the decisions that led up to the war and governed Britain's involvement.
Roger Bacon is preparing to face a very difficult day, the 10th anniversary of his son's death. In September 2005, Major Matthew Bacon was killed in action by a roadside bomb in southern Iraq. You're still waiting.
But we're still waiting, and it hurts. It really does.
He's waiting for answers, information, a conclusion that will explain why his son went to war and why he didn't come home.
It's when you don't know and when it just left there hanging that it becomes really, really difficult. So Sir John's got to get on with it.
He's talking about Sir John Chilcot.
This committee will not shy away from making criticisms.
The man in charge of Britain's independent inquiry into the Iraq War.
Right, everybody get back in the wagon now.
Chilcot has a huge job, examining every aspect of Britain's involvement in the conflict. The political decisions, intelligence, military planning and conduct. What went wrong? What lesson should be learned?
We are not a court of law.
The inquiry started back in 2009 and held regular public hearings questioning key decision makers, including the former Prime Minister who had championed the case for war.
And no regrets.
Responsibility, but not a regret for removing Saddam Hussein.
Those hearings wrapped up in 2011, and the inquiry was expected to present its final report soon after. It was initially delayed by a debate with the public service over secret documents the inquiry wants to publish, including personal notes between Tony Blair and US President George Bush. That was resolved. Now Chilcot points to a new time-consuming obstacle.
I'm facing a genuine difficulty regarding the Maxwellization process.
That's local bureaucratic jargon for allowing a right of reply to those who'll be criticised in the final report before it's published. It's supposed to ensure fairness. But the families of the soldiers killed during the war say they're increasingly finding the inquiry's process incompetent and cruel.
It's a running sore, and we can't get on with the rest of our lives without having this concluded and out of the way.
The expectation on Chilcot's inquiry has always been great because the war has always been deeply unpopular here. After a 6-year investigation, there's now huge demand to finally learn why Britain joined an invasion without public support.
Well, that report wraps up our news segment tonight. Stay tuned. We'll bring you True Guy Sports. That's coming up after this break.
True Guy Sports.
Welcome to True Guy Sports. The PNG Pukpuks secured their second win of the tournament, defeating American Samoa 36 points to 22. Stability in their scrum and patience in the breakdown pushed the Pukpuks against their tough American side, including their defense. The Pukpuks will face Solomon Islands in the final round matches this Saturday.
The American Samoans intercept inside their 22-meter mark led to a try and shook up the Pukpuks defense in the opening minutes of the match.
He's running away from the Bougainvillean Pukpuks. American Samoa with that pace, with the center, with a wonderful intercept, will score the first try for this afternoon. And
for the first time in the tournament, the Pukpuks trailed behind, 7 points to 0. Continuous attack by the Pukpuks sent fullback John Akaltu over the line to narrow the lead. 30 minutes into the first half and the Pukpuks pushed hooker Robbie W. Jr., James Lamaris and Richard Aitzi over the line. The American Samoans replied with a try just before half-time to see the Pukpuks remain in the lead 22 points to 14. Fresh legs in the second half saw props Ezekiel Daukor, Zion Reto and Adek Nayo have their first taste of the tournament. American Samoa's counter-attack shook up the Pukpuks defense once again. However, a strong scrum and patience in their breakdown saw the Pukpuks remain in the lead. Captain Tisa Kautu and Jackie Marcus picking up a try each to see PNG earn another win in the tournament. The Pukpuks will see Solomon Islands this Saturday in the final match. Skola Sengi, National, EMTV Sports.
Meanwhile, the PNG Pukpuks vice-captain expressed satisfaction in his team's performance after defeating American Samoa to end the second round of the Oceania Rugby Cup victorious.
On Saturday, did that affect the back line at all?
No, I don't think so. You know, we've always had a lot of good backs, going out. So he's getting cleared tonight. So hopefully he can come back. Like I said, we've got enough depth throughout the backs to sort of come in and fill up the spots. So again, like the forwards, the backs did a good job. So I'm happy.
Now, final match is on Sunday against the Solomon Islands. What can we expect from the home team?
I think, for us, it's just about taking each game one by one. So we'll have tomorrow off, and then come Friday, we'll start, going what we have to do for the game against the Solomon. So I think, again, they're probably a little bit more bigger than us, so we'll have to sort of front up with the physicality that Solomon Islands bring to us.
Well, Nigel, thank you very much for your time and all the best with the preparations for the final round.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Vice Captain of the PNG Pukpuks, Nigel Genia. That's a wrap here from the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium in Port Moresby. We'll have more rugby action on Sunday.
Well, still on the Oceania Rugby Cup, a disappointing performance for Solomon Islands in the first game of round 2 against Tahiti today. With 2 yellow cards, Solomon Islands was forced to cover for a man down in both halves. Tahiti, however, secured a comfortable 32-10 victory, a welcome result after their heavy loss to the PNG Pukpuks last Saturday.
Scoreless after 15 minutes and both teams unsuccessful with their penalty conversions early. Tahiti, however, were the first to post points after centre Mathieu Taulele went over the line in the 15th minute. That try, gone unconverted, allowing the Solomon Islands to recuperate and equalise shortly after. The Tahitians, however, after losing to PNG, were not about to let the game go, and flanker Manuara Richmond would score soon after. Tahiti taking the lead 10 points to 5. The second half had Tahiti up the ante in their forward pack, with prop Patrick Tavera going over.
7, 8, 9, 10. It's taken the whole forward pack to hold him up. He goes over. Will that be a converted try? It will be a famous...
That try successfully converted this time. Anthony Tasquet finding his feet.
Successful one for this afternoon, so 17 points to 5.
The Solomon Islands would reply shortly after to reduce the margin. However, the Tahitians would further extend the lead, running in 3 consecutive tries to end the match at 36 points to 12.
Picked up brilliantly.
Jeremy Moggy, National, EMTV Sports.
Over to football, the Port Moresby Soccer Association is hoping to send the biggest contingent to the Southern Region leg of the Besta Cup, which is slated for next month. The squad, which was selected over a year ago, but haven't played together and are wary of the threats posed by Ley and Manus.
Now, it has been a long time coming for the Port Moresby Soccer Association. The ground's taken away almost a year ago in preparation for the Pacific Games. You can see it here now. However, they believe that the strongest threats to PMSA, who have produced some of the best players here in the country, will come from both the Momase and New Guinea Islands regions. Now, for Momase, it'll most likely be Situm and Ley football. And for the New Guinea Islands regions, definitely Manus, who have proven themselves to be the defending champions for the Besta Cup.
We announced the team on Monday, and training started, I think, on Tuesday. It was like 4 days, and this week now.
And it has been a long time since we've been back here at Bicini.
Oh yes, we're happy to be back at home. It's nice to be back at Bicini, home of Port Moresby Soccer. A bit of issue with our guys at PNG Sports, but all settled down now, and I think they've given us green light to host our games.
For PMSA, however, this is a new-look squad. The team itself was selected almost 2 years ago for the previous Besta Cup, but then association was unable to provide any players for that particular competition. And this year they've decided that instead of just having a single men's and women's team, they have now pushed for both development squads in their respective divisions.
We've assembled 2 development team squad as well, part of our future plans. We have one for the ladies and one for the men, also the senior men and women for the Besta Cup. We've been given green light by the PNGF guys to have 4 teams in the tournament.
The southern leg of the Besta Cup is slated for next month and will include the Kaupa PSSA associations as well as teams coming in from Oro and Milne Bay. But most likely it'll be the Port Moresby Soccer Association, which will be one of the biggest threats. Jeremy Moggy, National TV Sports.
Well, True Guy Sports continues after this break. Stay tuned for all the sporting details.
True Guy Sports.
Good to have you back with True Guy Sports. Well, after picking up a squash racket at the age of 5, Lynette Vai has excelled in the sport over the years, including the recent Pacific Games where she won 3 gold medals. Now at 17, Lynette has been chosen by the PNG Olympics Committee to be the flag bearer at the Youth Commonwealth Games in Apia, Samoa. NTV's Koruneki reports.
Only 17 years of age and winning 3 gold medals in the Pacific Games in the sport of squash, Lynette Vai was appointed last night by the PNG Olympics Committee to be the flag bearer for Team PNG at the Youth Commonwealth Games in Apia, Samoa. After the announcement, Lynette told the PNG Olympics Committee that their hard work and commitment towards the success of the Pacific Games was worth paying attention to, as many athletes brought home gold for Team PNG.
To carry the flag of PNG at the Commonwealth Youth Games.
Chief the mission of the team, Alurigo Ravusiro, congratulated Lynette on her success during the Pacific Games and her role as the flag bearer of the Team PNG at the 5th Commonwealth Games in Samoa.
Pacific Games, and I've also from that retained my ranking in PNG as #1 junior and senior at a senior level, so I'm proud of that.
She said she's come this far and will continue to play and represent her country both in the Pacific region and at international tournaments. Lynette is currently ranked PNG's #1 female squash player. Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
On the same note, Papua New Guinea will be represented by 12 young athletes and 10 officials at the 5th Commonwealth Youth Games in Apia, Samoa. The Commonwealth Youth Games will be held from the 5th to the 13th of September. 9 different sports will be played, with more than 8,000 athletes from 72 different countries participating. EMTV's Rafaela Kaure reports.
Papua New Guinea athletes will be competing in 6 sports: athletics, boxing, squash, swimming, tennis and weightlifting at the Youth Commonwealth Games. The PNG Olympic Committee, members of the sporting fraternity and families of the athletes gathered at the Taram Aquatic Center were present to farewell the athletes. Minister for Sports Justin Tachenko said with the help of the brand new facilities, these new and upcoming athletes will do well at the Games.
You know, most of these athletes only had that sports enhancement and that backing for 2 years. And look at the results we achieved. Imagine if they have 5 years under their belt with that sports enhancement, or 7 years. Wow, we could get some Commonwealth and Olympic champions out of this country like you wouldn't believe.
5 of 12 athletes are Australian-based, while the other 7 are based in PNG. The contingent will also include 10 officials. Chef de Mission Alurigo Ravusiro said that the PNG athletes will not only take part in the Games, but also in some cultural activities, including other Pacific countries.
We have cultural events to attend to, which is part of the Commonwealth Youth Games, and we also will be helping, some of our athletes will be helping with United Nations activities as well. So it's not just competing over there, but also when we can taking part in the cultural activities.
She also encouraged the athletes not only to focus on the Games and to perform to the best of their ability, but also to enjoy themselves and be the best they can be at the Games. The team will leave Port Moresby for Apia, Samoa via Australia on the 1st of September for the 5th Commonwealth Youth Games. Rafaela Kaure, National EMTV Sports.
All the best, Team PNG. Well, that wraps up True Guy Sports tonight. The weather details for the next 24 hours coming up next. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports.
Taking a quick look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in southern region, mostly fine, although partly cloudy at times expected in the nation's capital. In Momasia, LA City to look forward to cloudy intervals with few showers at times. In the New Guinea Islands, brief showers expected in Kimbe and Lorengau. And lastly, in the Islands regional centres to look forward to cloudy weather, then morning fog. Well, that wraps up the news, sports and weather on this National Day of Prayer. From the news team, I'm Tokana Hasavi Jr. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay happy. Good night.